Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the Islamic Vice podcast. I'm your host Majid, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts Rash, JK, and brother Afi. Assalamu alaikum, brothers, and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I hope you guys are all well.
Alhamdulillah.
Good. Good stuff, inshallah. So, we might as well get straight into the actual topic of discussion today. And as we know, Queen Elizabeth II passed away a few days ago. And maybe that's the reason why brother JK and brother Afi are dressed in black. Just setting the mood. But yeah, so as we know, the Queen's died. And to be honest with you, it was when the news came through, it was a strange one because it was like part of you felt like, it was never going to happen. But obviously, we know every soul must taste death. But, obviously, she had a good innings in that. But I think it's worth discussing regarding the death of Queen Elizabeth from many angles, I think, because actually, if you look at, there's been a bit of a fallout on social media. There are some people that are, showing sadness, whilst there are other people actually who are actually saying things in the opposite direction in regards to the Queen, the royal family, its corrupt nature and whatnot. And we even know what happened to. We'll discuss it anyway. But what's happened to Trevor Sinclair? So there's loads to chat about, and also the Muslim angle, because even within the Muslims, we see there's a bit of debate and discussion. Some people are going as far as praying for forgiveness. Others are referring to her as our queen and whatnot. So there's loads to discuss, inshallah. So let's just get into it. And Rash, I'll just start off with you, bro. What's your views on the whole thing in regards to, the death and everything else?
Really, from kind of we look at everything obviously through an Islamic lens, as we should as Muslims. So when something like this happens, your first thought is, I think with most of it, your first thought is probably, how do you feel as a Muslim? Or at least that was mine. Again, and not to say that has to be everybody's approach, but that was my thought. And for me, I've always kind of seen the Queen and the monarchy as kind of representation of colonialism for me personally. Yeah. So that's the lens I first thought of it. So it didn't really affect me in the slightest. But then I think you're asking the question of, how I, reacted to it. It was more a case of thinking, okay, this is something that, like you said, it was going to happen, but it just seemed like it was when was it going to happen? So there was that element of, oh, okay, kind of was going to happen sometime soon. So yeah, no, not directly, as you'd probably imagine, didn't really, think too much about it. Ironically, me and my cousin were off to watch a game of football, and the first kind of thought was in our mind was, is this game going to get cancelled? So clearly not the most important thing on my mind at the time, but I do appreciate that from the same point of view, I have friends and colleagues and people like that who were affected by it, and I can appreciate that because for them, she represents and the monarchy represents something different. So from that point of view, each person's kind of reaction to it is going to be different. And that's why part of me, where people are being really, really kind of quite, attacking one another for how someone feels, I think that's probably a bit below the belt. But at the same time, I'm surprised by some Muslims who are upset by it and who are reacting to it in a certain way, and like you said, doing dua and stuff like that, because maybe we'll go into a little bit of the fiqh side. I think it's well known, and I think you won't get any very reputable scholars either of today or of the past who will say that it's allowed to ask for forgiveness for someone once they've passed away, a non-Muslim. So those things should have been clear. And maybe it's just a case of maybe not everybody's aware. Maybe not everybody's really thought about it and said, what happens when a non-Muslim passes away? And, how should we react? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a lack of knowledge. But if anybody looks into it, the issue is actually quite clear. So those were just some of my initial thoughts. And yeah, obviously the coverage is wall to wall, as you would expect. But maybe something to speak about is the media, because I think the media plays a big role, because you would think by looking at the news that 99.9% of people in Britain, and I mean everybody, I mean white people, black people, everybody, and especially British people, you'd look at the news and you'd assume that everybody was in favor of the monarchy in the way it's presented. But as we know, that's not the case, and possibly another topic to go into a bit more detail on. So those are my initial thoughts, really.
Yeah, sure. I mean, JK, just to get your thoughts on something else, actually, because Rash touched on about the media, yeah, the media and its role, and you can see it's sort of like 24-hour coverage at the moment, and it does paint a picture of a sort of cuddly old woman has passed away, who's quite harmless, and people don't really make the connection to actually her role as the head of state, or the link even to parliament and what this country's been doing historically and even in recent times, whether it's what happened in Iraq and stuff like this. But what we can see is the media is painting this picture of this, really lovely little old woman, harmless woman. And you can probably see why some people would feel sad in that respect. But is that the true picture? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm with Rash that I think there's been many different reactions, obviously from the non-Muslims and then from Muslims, and I think you kind of have to tackle them separately, actually. But you've seen some that are distraught, fully crying on the radio, crying on the TV, and it's like, whoa, like did your mum pass away or something? It was like that level, isn't it? Like you're thinking, which is strange. I thought very strange, but okay, fine, that's their reaction. There's other people that are not bothered, of the non-Muslims. So like, if I don't get a bank holiday, I'm not really bothered at that level, and it's a bit crude. But you've had that reaction where it's like, I got nothing to do with me, and okay, fine, that's a natural reaction. Then you've had some rejoicing, celebrating, which is probably rare, but there's been a few, which again is a reaction, each to their own, really, if they want to react like that. And then I think probably my camp really is that, look, I'm neither happy nor I'm not happy in that, not really, because, and the reason I'm not rejoicing is that, yes, so she passed away, but what she represents and the institution she represents remains. So nothing has gone in that sense. She's just a person, and she represented that, and she was a head of state, but nothing really to rejoice about in that sense. It's not like when others have passed away. It's not, to me anyway, it wasn't. And secondly, I've obviously not really got sad about it either, because it doesn't really affect me. But I think the main thing of this group is that it's an opportunity to really expose, going back to your question, expose what the Queen and more broadly the royal family represents. And Rash mentioned a little bit of it, but I think there's a few angles. There's one of representing Britain, right? The royal family is very British. A lot of its makeup, a lot of its even institutions are aligned with the royal family, whether that be the armed service, even their emergency services, post office. A lot of the institutions, public institutions, are aligned to the royal family, or the crown, or whatever you want to call it. So they do represent something. We can't think that she's just an old woman who passed away, and she's like just a grandma, a 96-year-old who passed away. No, not at all. She represented the British royal family, and also Britain as a nation, historically as well, not just now. And that includes the colonialism that Britain and the royal family specifically were involved in terms of colonizing the world, a lot of the Muslim world, but also lots of Africa, and other areas as well, even places like Argentina, which still has, some sort of colonization going on with the Falkland Islands. So, and even Jamaica, these places as well, where there's a active anti-monarchy stance in those countries. William and Kate went to Jamaica recently, and there were many protests against them, and they had to leave quite quickly. They were quite surprised. So they do represent something. They're not just, you can't just make them guilt-free from all of this, right? Historically and now. So colonization, yes, with all the wars that happened in the past, but also the recent wars. So Afghanistan, Iraq, even, and Yemen more recently. So a lot of what British involvement there's been, the neo-colonization that has happened in these lands, you know, is linked. The royal family is linked to this, and the Queen herself gave out knighthoods to certain people, like Tony Blair, who we know not only do Muslims have a hatred for, a lot of the British public do as well. So you know, that's in answer to, I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about it, but in answer to your question, I think it's very naive to suggest that the Queen is not representative of anything and just someone who was playing a ceremonial role. Yes, it is ceremonial in the sense that the royal family doesn't have as much power as it used to have. However, it still plays a very strong stance. When they say, I'm fighting for Queen and country, that means something. You know, these soldiers that are killing innocents in the Muslim land, they're fighting for Queen and country. So that's not just a saying. They are fighting because they feel like they're doing a duty for the Queen and their country. So yeah, that's, you know, I'll allow Afi to kind of jump in a bit, but yeah, I in answer to your question, I don't think it's as simple as saying that she represents nothing.
Yeah, Afi, what's your thoughts on this, bro?
Yeah, not to go over what you guys have said, because I agree totally. I think when you know, the alert came up on my phone that, you know, she's died, I think just the discussion amongst certain brothers where you can see how this is going to pan out. 100% you can see how it's going to pan out, right? That the reaction should be one, which is one we should refer back to Islam and what our reaction is. But we knew very, very well that that wasn't going to be the case. We even pinpointed on the names of people who are going to come out, refer to her as sovereign, refer to King Charles now, the third or the second or whatever he is, as sovereign, and start, you know, doing janazah prayer and doing astaghfar for her. We actually predicted this. So the sad thing is that the reality is such that we knew that this was going to happen. And you know what, reflecting on it, you know, I was thinking about this earlier on today, that you could see how times have changed, you know, from when we were children and, you know, the royal weddings happened. Yeah, all right, they were going on, but the Muslims weren't that engaged in it, right? They weren't that bothered about it because they had that disconnect. If you look at it, for decades now, there have been these Ponzi organizations that have popped up, claiming to represent the Muslims, claiming to have their authority, who have been channeling the thinking of Muslims for decades now, to get to this stage where over time she has been referred to as the head of state, or you need to obey the rulers wherever you are. This kind of thinking has crept in so much that the Muslims are so far in their thinking to the way that they should be. And you can see how it's occurred that we've got to this situation. So to be honest, it's like we knew the reaction was going to be there. We've got to appreciate the fact that actually this has been a systematic attack on the minds of Muslims in changing the way that they think. And it has been directed by certain organizations. And I think that's the key bit, that what you get in conversation is just a product of the systemic attack on the minds of Muslims to get them to this stage. And those guilty culprits, we all know who they are. And they made their stance very, very clear in the aftermath of this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two ways. You know, the media thing, there's two sides of it. So especially when we look at our Muslim brothers and sisters and stuff, you know, look, we're in a foreign land. You know, we're away from the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By foreign land, I mean like we're in a place which is, you know, these were countries that were ruled by kings and queens and Christianity and all of those things. This isn't, you know, it's never been a Muslim country. So we're in foreign lands. On top of that, this is not where we originated from. So I know there are people who are trying their best to set up mosques to facilitate for Muslims, yeah? Because they have to, because wherever we are, we need to set up institutions and mosques to practice our deen. So the point I'm trying to get at, though, is that I think there's two sides to this. There's the one side where, like Afi is saying, there are some institutions that have been directly set up by the governments in order to try and represent Muslims. those institutions are so intrinsically tied with the Western institutions and the governments and the, you know, the actual structure of this country, that they're going to toe the line of what the government wants them to do. Yeah. So if they're going to be pushed towards, for example, you know, putting out sentiments of forgiveness and, you know, putting messages out and maybe even pushing for khutbahs to be done about this topic and stuff, you can understand why they're going to be doing that. And that's wrong, because their criteria as Muslims should be Islam. But because of the fact that those institutions have been set up that way, they're towing the line. Yeah. But at the same time, there's the other side, and I've seen it firsthand. Some of it is that, you know, like in these countries, this is the problem, isn't it? You know, when you think that this is where you're going to be forever, then you start to think, well, I need to set up certain mosques and certain institutions and stuff. And to do those things, you need the support of like councils and local government authorities. So what happens is it's fine at first because you go, this person, this councillor helped me set up this mosque. And therefore, what subsequently happens, and like I say, I've seen it firsthand, is they come back to ask for the favors that they've done to you. Okay, so for example, if someone's helped you set up your mosque and helped you make sure you can set up in a certain locality and genuinely helped, because from their point of view, they also want to make sure there's, you know, facilities for all of the different religious minorities. But what happens naturally is, like, when something like this happens, they can come to you and say, oh, by the way, we helped you do that. Now you got to do this. You know, you've got to represent the Muslim community in your your response to an event happening. So from a Islamic point of view, we need to make sure we only do that which is Islamic. So you guys will have known this, that sometimes during elections, some mosques, again, I'm not saying they do it out of will, but you'll see mosques have MPs come and stand at the pulpit and call for votes for Labour and Tories and stuff like that. That's not allowed. But the mosques end up allowing it, whether out of duress, whether out of pressure and all of those things, because they've been supported in the past and they feel that they have to pay back that support. And I think some of it applies to this as well. So there will be some mosques and some places, and there has been some mosques that outright went and did, you know, du'as for her and stuff like that, which, if they were going to look at it from a fiqh point of view, an Islamic point of view, a Sharia point of view, it's not allowed. So I think that's why, just to elaborate a little bit on my thoughts on what Afi's saying, is there's this two sides. There's almost like a government push down side, and then the kind of the Muslims being at the beck and call of those people who have helped them set up and therefore are in a difficult situation.
Yeah, it also could be, I mean, those two sides could probably be further broken down, where there are some who are blatantly pushing an agenda. I mean, we were most of us on this call were here. Most of us on this call were witness to when one so-called scholar, he proudly said that the Union Jack was part of his iman, right? And we see that this is definitely being pushed down our Queen, our Prime Minister. You hear it in the mosques, right? But also there's an element where, because, you know, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but because it does feel like, you know, everything is against Muslims, in the sense, like, you know, the media, the agenda, that, you know, for Muslims to feel, you know, included in being, you know, British, then they have to say this and that about the Queen, and that if they do toe a different line, then they'll be seen as, you know, people who don't belong here. You understand? I mean, if you look at just what happened to Trevor Sinclair, you know, he said his thoughts about, I mean, what did he tweeted? Racism was outlawed in England in the 60s and it's been allowed to thrive. So why should black and brown mourn? Okay. He was expressing an opinion. He got slammed down, right? He's not even Muslim and he got slammed down. Now, if Muslims were to come out and say, actually, wait a minute, we've come from colonized lands, you know, historically, the monarchy, whether it's King Richard, the Lionheart, or whether it's this king or that queen, right? From an Islamic point of view, Islamic history point of view, there's always been that clash. In fact, if you look at the fall of what happened with the Ottoman state, you look at when the Muslim lands were colonized, who were they colonized by? I mean, just us guys sitting here, we come from a part of the world where our lands were ruled, the resources raped. Okay, even today, you see their crowns still hold the jewels from that part of the land. So it's like, wait a minute, even if you weren't looking at it from an Islamic point of view, just from a point of view of like, having a bit of maybe pride from where you come from, you think, wait a minute, how can I be right remorseful about what's happening or loving this institution? However, are people going to go out and say that? And I think there's a lot of pressure. So I think that on one hand, you have got those people who are pushing the agenda. And I think on the other side, you've got people who maybe just, they feel like they can't express themselves. But actually, if they went on to Twitter, if they went on to TikTok and all the other social media, actually, you see non-Muslims that are actually coming out and talking about how, the Queen, lobbied many legislation, some to hide her, the amounts of money she had, right? Others, there were money in tax havens, right? And actually, there was a law which was about the equality law, race equality law, which actually was lobbied against because there were rules in place for example, Buckingham Palace, where there was a policy of barring colored immigrants and foreigners from office jobs. And this was up until 1968. But they were exempt from this because it was lobbied.
It was from 1960 that the law was passed, but the Buckingham Palace was exempt from it even up until last year.
Exactly.
So they said there was going to be a review. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, but, and who are you getting this information from? A lot of it is from non-Muslims who are just saying, wait a minute, right now, people are, finding it hard to pay for their electricity bills and food and everything. And you want us to, the whole country to come to a stop because a monarch whose wealth is hidden, the amounts is hidden. In fact, I think, what was it called? It was called the estate, the Queen's estate, right? Had actually invested in certain companies, and one of those companies was known to exploit people, right? So a lot of people are thinking, wait a minute, we're trying hard just to make ends meet right now, but you want us to actually be, sad at this person dying who we've actually not even connected to. But you see, the non-Muslims, they come out and say it. But Muslims, there's this inferiority complex, especially when you hear, if you hear people like influentials, Muslim influentials coming out and saying that if you're not sad, if you didn't like the Queen, if you didn't like the institution, then you shouldn't be here. But how shallow of an argument is that? So what they're going to do with those millions, and I'm going to say millions of English people who have no connection and actually despise, right, what the Queen and what the monarchy stands for, where are they going to ship them off to? To Rwanda. You know what I mean? So
apparently even Liz Truss mentioned she was against monarchy.
Yeah, she was against. But the point I'm saying is that as Muslims, there's this inferiority complex, and also on the other side, there's this colonialist mindset where we're still colonized. Yes, sir. No, sir. How high shall I jump, sir?
100%. I think that's one thing that I've noticed from all of this, that alhamdulillah, a lot of Muslims haven't had that reaction, but those who have, you can really see that colonized mentality, house Muslim mentality, that, just obey, because, how grateful we should be of living in this country. Look how much they've done for us. But it's like, subhanAllah, like, have you just totally ignored the history of the British and the royal family specifically? And I think it is a product of what we know the West are trying to do is to integrate Muslims. It's a product of integration. So it comes down to identity. These Muslims who are making dua and talking about the glorious Queen and all of this, they are they are the ones that have integrated, and they view their identity as being British rather than viewing it from an Islamic perspective. And like you said, you don't even need to look at it an Islamic perspective. There's enough out there to know why you shouldn't really be supporting the monarchy, and the non-Muslims will at least give them credit there, where they will actually call it out. But put that to aside. As a Muslim, we need to really recognize that, okay, the death happened, right? But it's nothing linked to. It's not deliberate or anything like that. It kind of happened, but it's very telling of where we stand. And I think some of these mosques and institutions that are kind of coming out and taking that very, even like MCB and others, if you saw their statements, they're talking about how it's our Queen and what good she did, and it's like, hold on, who do you represent? If you're Muslim Council of Britain, who are you representing? I thought you were representing the Muslims. So it's very fishy, very suspicious for these organizations to really stand like this when they know what Britain has done to the Muslims throughout the reign of Queen Elizabeth II and also before that. You know, when Allenby walked into Jerusalem and claimed it for the British, that was against Muslims. You know, when Blair and Bush and others from America, you know, obviously the counterparts in America, when they went into Iraq and Afghanistan and killed that many thousand, destroyed the nation and the country and the people, you know, that was against Muslims. So it's very like, it's disappointing, but it's not surprising either, because I feel like these organizations, Muslims that have fell for it, have taken an identity that is more British than being Muslim, and they will class themselves as being British Muslim, but actually they're British, you know, and they will view it as their Queen, and that's why they're sorrowful and sad. I was listening to the radio, and some Muslims did come on talking about how, and it's really weird because you think about just a few decades before, when the East Indian Company colonized parts of India and Bangladesh and Pakistan. Where's that gone? Why have we just whitewashed all of that? So yeah, so I that's one thing I've learned from this, that, you know, there are Muslims, alhamdulillah, that have questioned it, which is good actually. I thought that's, and it's from among the youth actually. I've looked and seen, and maybe that's because they're a bit more exposed to stuff from social media, so they're a bit more enlightened, which is positive. But I found that some of the others, and maybe the older generation, they're a bit more, you know, sad to say, but a bit more colonized and a bit more grateful, even though they should have more of a link, right? Because they're closer to their grandparents, probably suffering at the hand of the colonial rule in Britain in India and the other lands.
So, you know, so if I come jump in there, JK, because that links to a point I wanted to make, because you highlight like the social media and the youth saying some stuff that, you know, you're more proud of the fact that they've represent the Islamic viewpoint. So the point is, I think that's really useful to know, because what we've seen is, and it's a generational thing, is, have you noticed, like, because like I said right at the beginning, the whole media, the way it portrays the monarchy and, you know, how people should think almost. When I say media, by the way, what I mean is like mainstream media, the media that is controlled by the government. Remember, the likes of the BBC and stuff are government, you know, they're influenced by government. Yeah. On top of that, the media represents the dominant ideology, especially mainstream media. So the dominant ideology is the ideology of capitalism, is the ideology of the patriotism of the country, the nationality. Yeah. So what it is you now are seeing quite a distinct difference between what mainstream media promotes and what the likes of social media and the things they can control slightly less. And again, I'm not saying they can't control social media. They can, because they ban people. They try and get their message across. Anybody speaks against them, you know, the freedom of speech that they talk about doesn't exist. Yeah. However, you do see a jarring difference between mainstream media and social media in the same way, like I said at the beginning, is if it comes across as if, look, everybody's in agreement with monarchy and stuff like that, and that's what's being promoted. In the past, I think that's what's created this mindset again within the previous generations. You know, I know it has stemmed into future generations as well. You saw a lot of young people at a lot of these, you know, where the Queen's body has been moved around, and where, you know, on the day when it happened and the when Charles became king and stuff, there is young people there, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, a lot of it has been influenced by mainstream media. Whereas what's appearing now is, at the same time, there's social media, and social media is exposing the colonialist past, or the colonization, and that they're never going to show that on TV. They're never going to teach your kids that at college and school. Okay, they go into it a little bit, and they try and paint it as if, okay, yeah, we did some bad things in the past, and oh look, you know the age-old saying about we had to crack a few eggs to make an omelette. Yes, we made some mistakes, but look at what's come out from it. But actually, no. What's come out from it is your colonization has continued. It's just continued in a different format. Yeah. It's like neo-colonization now. You're still, you know, suppressing those nations that you want to, you know, you want to take their resources for your own. You want to make sure that you remain the dominant power. Yeah. And you do that at the expense of those countries. So I'm still looking forward to the day that someone says to me, get out of the country if you don't appreciate the things this country has done for you. Because like Maj said, it's a shallow argument, because you can throw it straight back in their faces and say, well, we wouldn't be in these countries if it wasn't for what you did in our lands. So, but it just goes to show that the jarring between social media and mainstream media, I found quite interesting. And these kind of events highlight just how much they try and promote a certain narrative in the media they can completely control versus in the media they can't control. And one stat that I heard was, it was like something like 1 in 4 people don't want monarchy. They don't want, so things like that doesn't come across in the slightest, does it? So I found that quite an interesting one, really.
Yeah, no, exactly, bro. And I think it's just it's just the way they're trying to promote it. And within, if you're talking about from within the Muslims, there's definitely an agenda of integration, and which you know, after you touched upon, and it, you know, and even if you see where when the Jubilee thing happened, how you saw, you know, little Muslim children, you know, waving the flags, and even when recently, a day or two ago, there's this one notorious imam who you know, he made a statement that you know, if Muslims came to invade this land, then, you know, you'd have to fight the Muslims. So it's talking about integration, it's talking about where your priorities and who they lie with, right? And one thing we've spoken about before on many other podcasts is that when people are talking about integration doesn't just mean that you like the Queen or you like King Charles III. It means that you have to accept their way of life, you have to accept their values and their culture. And this is something which is at odds with Islam. Okay, Afi, I think I could sense that you were going to make a point, bro, so I'll just bring you in.
There's a couple of points. I'll just touch on what you've just said there. And this whole integration rubbish that people try to throw at you. Let's go back to the time of Muhammad Sallallahu. Yeah, when Muhammad Sallallahu came out with a message which was a radical idea, radical in the sense that it's completely different to what society already had. Why did Muhammad Sallallahu integrate? Because Islam did not come to integrate. Islam came to dominate. That was just the nature of the deen. Islam came to rule the world. There is no integration in this. This is core in the dawah of Muhammad Sallallahu, that there is no compromise here. You've got to follow this way of life that I have been ordered for you to follow. And if you don't, there's a severe punishment for you in the hereafter. So I think this is linked to what I was going to talk about, which is the crux of the problem here. And you know, when you really look at it, in my mind, it comes down to this. If you look at our history, it's a proud history, because we had a nation for centuries who had the ability to think. They weren't taking what was fed to them by the non-Muslims, etc. And even what was given to them by Muslims, they would digest and challenge if they disagreed with it, because they understood what our criteria was. Our criteria is that we have to follow whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered us to do. Simple, right? And if you look at it over time, this has become diluted, so that even with those guys who are trying to order or trying to say, and these are Muslim representatives as they claim, right? They're trying to address Muslims and saying, this is how you need to behave, but they're doing it from a logical perspective. We are in this country, the Queen is the head of state. We need to respect non-Muslims. We need to respect her because they've allowed us to live here. They allowed us to build mosques. All logical arguments. But where does this play a role in the way that Muslims need to think? Because our criteria is simple. What has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to do, and what has He forbidden us to do? And where this is more dangerous just than those people who are propagating these ideas is that even when you look at the arguments that a lot of Muslims are having, they're doing it from the intellectual perspective, like what you guys have been talking about, the history of the colonizers, the nature of the royal family. But there is this reluctance or a lack of awareness of, look, this is a simple argument. Let's just take it back to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered. Is it clear cut? Is there an answer or isn't there an answer? If there isn't, fine. But if there is an answer, that needs to what we need to be hold on to. But the fact that the Muslims as a whole, the thinking is so far away from there, highlights the fundamental problem that we've got. There's a secularization of the deen that's taking place, which is deliberate. And whether we like it or not, we've all in some way have fallen victim to it. But at least, the ones who do think, do try to turn to it and say, okay, let's at least try to understand what is required from us on this matter. But overwhelmingly, and this is why a lot of Muslims are in limbo, because they're thinking like, you know what, it doesn't sit right with me to mourn the death of the Queen, but the Imams are saying I should do, so maybe I should. And a lot of them are in that situation purely because the essence of what our criteria is fundamentally missing.
Yeah, no, that I think that's a really good point, bro. And it's that way of thinking through an Islamic point of view. And I think another thing which many Muslims, we've fallen into, not a trap as such, but it is a trap, but this mindset that even though we love the Ummah, even though we make dua for the Ummah, whether it's the floods in Pakistan or whatever, right? Still, mentally, we have carved ourselves up geographically, right? So those who, for example, are in Britain, in England, right? Because they're here, they then must love the Queen. It's the head of state, the royal family, the king, the institutions, because they're here. Then those Muslims living in Denmark, right? I know they've got king and stuff. It's going to be the same, etc. However, this goes against what Islam says. Yeah. And I think that's, like you're saying, it's a fundamental issue where we can talk about colonization. We can talk about, that the person that Muslims dislike, as an example, Salman Rushdie, this guy was knighted. The person Tony Blair, who actually admitted about the lies and stuff that led to millions of people dying, this guy was given another, I think, the highest level of knighthood. Yeah. By whom? Right? They're good arguments, but I think you're right from a Muslim point of view, which first and foremost our criteria should be Islam. We should always remember that we're one ummah, and in reality, forget kings and queens. As an ummah, we see what did the Messenger Sallallahu do. He was the first head of state. And then who, as the Messenger Sallallahu said, that the best generations, or my generations, the ones after and the ones after. What did they do? They collectively appointed a leader who was a Khalif. And then the one after him did the same. The one after him did the same. Okay, there might have been a few discrepancies on the way things were done. However, we see for almost 1400 years, the head of state of the Muslim world, sometimes even just as a nominal figurehead. However, was the Khalif, the head of state. But we've got no worries about the fact that we don't have this head of state. Should we bring him back? Is there something which is even, is there something which is required for Muslims? Is it just something that just happened? We don't think about these things. However, we're more than happy to toe the line of, this is our king, this is our queen, and we should, love them. We should love the institution, and we should mourn at their loss. JK, what are you saying?
I was just going to say, it goes back to what Rash was saying. I mean, top point by Afi. I think that's hit the nail on the head, really. What Rash was saying in the sense that many have either, I don't, it's difficult to say who's done it willingly or unwillingly, but let's just say it's all unwilling, right? But it's still bad because, if it, at best, this stance means you've just got really comfortable with where you're living, and you've generally now identify as being British, and all your loyalty lies with being British and in the West, really. Yes, you pray, yes, you might go to the mosque and all of this, but actually when it comes to your loyalty and your stance on things, you call Britain your home, you call this person your queen and the new king your king. That's massively problemsome, to be fair, to have that stance. And if that's for Muslim in general, but if a imam is taking this stance, what a travesty. What a travesty. Because yes, going back to Afi's point, it's all about criteria here. In Islam, there's a concept of al-wala wal-bara, loving and hating for the sake of Allah, loving that which Allah loves and hating that which Allah hates. So to now say to love the queen and what she represents, and the fact that, really good example they use there, that this was the same woman who gave a knighthood to the likes of Salman Rushdie and Tony Blair and Shimon Peres, right? Are all criminals, and not just, in the eyes of Muslims, they're criminals, full on. Like, this is not even an argument. You're not going to hear a Muslim who says, "Oh no, do you know what? Tony Blair wasn't too bad." Or, and I know they're people, and the system is far worse than the people, but they also represented their people, and they were honored by this woman, right? So where's your al-wala wal-bara now? When Salman Rushdie totally, subhanallah, like, I looked into it a bit further, because obviously when I was quite young when all of that happened, or just born, I think, to be fair. And I had to look into it a little bit, like, what did he actually say? And it's, astaghfirullah, is so bad. And of his wives, right? The mothers of the believers. They're the true mothers of the believers, not this queen, talking about the mother of the nation, all of this, right? Crap. But the point I'm making is that, have we really got loyalty to Islam and Allah, or does our loyalty now lie with Britain because we live here and we should be grateful? Therefore, we should be loyal to the Queen, the King, and country. No, you're for the fact that people are asking, "Oh, can we stand for the Queen? Can we say R.I.P.? Can we go to the janazah and all of this?" It's like, subhanallah, like, how is that? Why do you even want to do that for this person? I'm not saying attack her. You don't need to attack her or celebrate either. No one's saying that. But why do you want to go to that level where you're making tawbah for her and all of this?
You know why, bro?
Ridiculous.
I'll tell you why. Because there is a full-on agenda which we've spoken about. There's a lot of pressure on Muslims
100%.
because if you think about it, probably Rash gave a statistic of 1 out of 4 people don't want the monarchy, right? And you go to the internet and there's loads of people who haven't got anything good to say about what's happened. Okay,
Exactly.
but the expectations of Muslims to show their loyalty the same way. I'll give you another example. You have people, and the good thing is what Afi pointed as well is that it's not just the expectation from the state. It's actually being pushed by the so-called those people that are responsible for the Muslims, right? I'll give you another example. You have low voter turnout in elections. Why? Because a lot of people just don't vote. A lot of like indigenous, right, English people, British people, they don't vote. However, we've got Muslims who are on the pulpits saying it's wajib, right? That it's obligatory for you to vote. And if you don't, somehow you're being disloyal. Wait a minute. A large part of the population doesn't vote. But you see the different context. Why? Because it goes back to even the Tibet test, Lord Tibet test, right? You understand? When Pakistan comes over to play cricket, who do these guys support? Right? So there's that pressure that you don't find on other people, but you find it on Muslims. Why? Because at every moment, what they're trying to do is they're trying to question, and goes back to the point you said, JK, where are your loyalties? Where are your loyalties? And what doesn't help is these guys who are meant to be the representatives of Muslims actually pushing that agenda. You understand what I say?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, man. And another way, just another thing I wanted to bring in as well is the level of hypocrisy one could argue, right? So you had, for example, people being, gunned down, not literally, for saying things which are, like against the Queen or the institution, right? For example, look how happened to Trevor Sinclair. What he said is he's probably experienced racism, right? So he's just saying that, wait a minute, man, look, racism's thrived. And, so why should, the people of color mourn? Look how my man was gunned down. Talk Sports suspended him, right? It was like as if the dogs were out looking for him, right? However, when it comes down to insulting the Prophet ﷺ, it's all game. It's freedom of speech. It's freedom of expression. But you say something about the Queen, what he said wasn't even like, right, really that bad. In all honesty, people can't take it.
Yeah.
So the Muslims who are living here, and the Muslims that are maybe even like promoting these type of views about, you're living here, the law of the land, and all this, can't they see that hypocrisy that you can't say anything about the Queen, but you can insult the Messenger, right? You can stand up for the right for those who attack the Messenger, and these are coming from the top positions of power, whether it's the Prime Minister, the Queen, the King, or whatever. Why can't Muslims see that? It's so obvious. JK, you're gonna say something?
No, I'm just agreeing with all that you said, and I think it's a really good example that it's just double standards again, isn't it? Where freedom of expression, when it comes to those who the Muslims love, is totally blasphemy and all the dishonor on the Prophet Muhammad Sallam, whether it be Charlie Hebdo or Salman Rushdie or whoever it may be. Oh, it's freedom of expression. This is the country we live in. Accept it. But if it happened to their people and those who they love, it's unacceptable. Right? And like I said, what happened to Trevor Sinclair? The other bit I wanted to just bring in, right, is one thing that's really ironic with all of this is that, the Queen and the Crown state, the royal family, essentially, they cost the taxpayer a lot of money, loads of money, like 102 million, I think it was last year, in tax, yeah? And not only that's one part of it, but also they own, like I think you mentioned, like hectares and acres of land across the country that is just they just inherited it, right? So the royal family also represents this view of elitism, capitalism at its highest level, in terms of they are the elite of this country, and they gain money from just inheriting all this estate.
They get handouts.
It's handouts, yeah, they get handouts, right? And also they continue to spend lavishly in the sense that they take planes and private planes to places. I mean, who are they? They're human beings. Like this is representative of elitism and at the highest level, essentially. And look at what time it's come, at the time of the cost of living crisis, where Britain can now see the suffering, right? Like a lot of the world suffered for a while as well, but Britain now are suffering. The people are suffering. Energy bills are high. Cost of living is high. The inflation's through the roof, right? And the funny thing is the package that they're thinking of doing, the energy package that Liz Truss is going to do, is about the same as the Crown costs. So one answer to fund that would be get rid of the monarchy and then help people. And this is something I think is important to reflect on, because, a state and a head of state like the Queen. I know the Queen, the King, they don't have the power, but just hear me out here that if they are genuinely looking after the people's affairs and they want best for the people, then should they not be thinking about how they help the people, not how they live and continue this life that's based on history that was all hierarchical and just given down to them and handouts, like Rash said. That's not happening here. So why should we love that? Why should, forget Muslims, why should anybody love that? You guys are the ones that are suffering with your bills. You should be demanding that actually, no, this is not needed. The people who need support, not the monarchy. And now if you compare that with the Islamic system, I'm sure we'll have a podcast on this. You know, is a really good topic on how would the Islamic system view this, right? Muhammad Sallam and those after him, they established a true state, right? Where it was purely about the people. They were representatives of their people. And they did everything for the people, even though wealth came in actually through battles, but it was the people's wealth. And the system that Islam really implemented was the most just system that we'll ever see. There's nothing more just because it came from Allah, and Allah is the most just. So I think this is another point of reflection when it comes to the royal family as well. Now, it's not as simple as just thinking it's just a, symbolic and all that. No, it means a lot. It means something in terms of the history and colonialism, but it also says a lot about elitism in such a time as well. So if we really want to be intellectual and think about this, let's just not go down with the narrative that the media pushes down our throats. We really need to think up, research, look up, just kind of like step back a bit and look at some of this.
Yeah, I think there are people who are doing that, which is good. Yeah. Like you say, the media might be portraying a certain image, but there are a lot of people on the ground who are questioning why there should even be a monarchy. Especially if you think about it, one of the number one in the list of British values is what? Democracy. You must believe in democracy. Where in democracy does a monarchy, a non-elected family passed down, fit in? Monarchy doesn't fit in democracy. So the same British value they want to force feed into our families, but also into the general population, into all of them, the monarchy goes against that. Yeah. So, but thankfully, people are becoming more aware of it. My worry is that mainstream media still has a massive stranglehold on people. You just can see it from what's happened over the last few days, But the irony is even things like, football being cancelled and stuff like that. What you're seeing is that people are agitated by it. They're like, this doesn't represent me anymore. And what I also find, and you might find this a bit of a strange analogy, but like a lot of stuff is done because it's done on social media. People are like on, a good example is things like Sky Sports versus nowadays you get all these fan channels on YouTube, don't you? But what those main institutions like your Sky Sports and stuff have had to do in recent years is try to copy what some guy in his bedroom has started. Yeah. Why are they trying to do it? Because they've realized they struggle to read the masses in the way that they previously just tried to dictate that this is what you should believe. Thou shalt follow football like this. Thou shalt live like this. Thou shalt follow the media like this. All that's happened with social media is people have started to go, no, I want to do it my way or our way. And then the on the ground, the people's thoughts and the reading of the room, as how they say, read the room when they come out with a ruling or something. A lot of the times what happen is those people, the elites, they can't read how the general public on the ground feels and what they want. So, okay, a lot of people, like you said, JK earlier, a lot of people just thinking, oh, we're going to get a day off. A lot of people for many years, I've heard people going, when's the Queen going to die so I can have a day off? That's okay, it sounds like a joke, but that's from their point of view, that's horrific. What you're waiting for someone to die just so you can have a day off. What kind of, where is the linkages there? There's serious detachment there. So I think it is good that people are realizing, especially the elitism point is a banging point. It highlights that there's a massive detachment. And if they really cared about the people, they would go, you know what, we've got enough for us and 10 generations after us to live. We don't need your handouts anymore.
Yeah.
You guys are living on the handouts of the people. You lot are like beggars, at the end of the day. Or at least, live with the wealth that you've already got. Why are you taking more from working class people? People who are on minimum wage are paying for you. Come on, if anybody just deeps it a little bit and just thinks, wait there a minute, what the hell? There's people that are struggling to live and their money is going towards sustaining this monarchy.
Yeah.
On top of that, there's some people who, when you have a debate with them, and again, not Muslims, I've heard non-Muslims debating with one another about the legitimacy and whether monarchy should remain. It always comes down to the point you made about, at the end, one of the good person debating for the monarchy starts to say, oh, well, even though they cost us X amount in tax, they actually bring in more. But there are people who have done studies and books on this who have completely destroyed that argument. Yeah, and then they probably haven't even considered all the land that these guys own without paying taxes on them, that they should. These are land that can be used, fertile land that under Islam would be distributed to people to utilize.
Well, think about the house crisis, the fact that there's a shortage of homes. What about all this land that they're not using?
Exactly.
So it's not for the people. Totally against. It goes against what would help the people today, and that is something that hopefully people will look back and question. But you're right. I think there's a powerful media out there, and that's pushing a certain point. That's going to be difficult for people to see past that.
Yeah. No, exactly, man. And like you guys have said, the reason why they need to, instill this patriotism in people is because it kind of blinds them. Because a lot of the people out there who are struggling, it's funny you mentioned that. Is soon as we heard the news, people are talking about we can get 10 days off mourning and stuff like that, and it just goes to show there's massive disconnection in it. So inshallah, brothers, let's kind of bring the podcast to a close. I'm sure there's loads more to chat about, but what I'll do is I'll just get your final thoughts. And Afi, I'll start off for you, bro. For any final thoughts you want to share on this topic?
I just make two, if that's all right. Firstly, a reminder that our criteria is simple. I just think that's the main point, because that's where we go wrong, and that's where we will succeed if we are to adopt it properly. Just refer back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger in everything that we do, and then that will shape what our behavior will be, no doubt. Second point I just wanted to make was to really understand where the royal family fit into all of this, right? I was just looking up, reading an ayah of the Quran here while we were talking, and it just shouts out to you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that Satan is indeed an enemy to you. And so don't let him, treat him as an enemy, and don't let him lead you astray. And this is where Muslims, we need to be astute, right? We know that there's a war being waged on Islam here, right, throughout the world, and it's a ferocious war. They're not going to be happy until we leave our way of life, and this is being waged by the ideology that is prevalent in the world today of the capitalists, right? And they're doing it, why? Because they want to preserve what they have. And it's the capitalists, those people who are ruling the world, those people who have the capital or want to protect their way of life, and then they'll shed as much blood, Muslim blood, as is needed. And it's just simple here. The royal family is just one of the major capitalists in this country. How can you separate and have that disconnect?
Yeah, it's mad.
So they are part of it. They might not be sitting there in parliament, but they direct whatever is in their interest. So it is part of their interest to make sure that the Islamic way of life does not prevail in this world. And it's just simple. So I just wanted to remind people that, look, we need to be aware of what's happening to us and why it's happening, and then refer back to Islam for our solutions.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair for that, man. JK, any final thoughts, bro?
Just a really quick one, that One thing as Muslims we should just be a little bit careful of is that there are quite a few anti-monarchy? Yeah, anti-monarchy
Monarchy, yeah, yeah.
stance, yeah. But we need to be careful that we don't just blur ourselves and go into because the certain anti-monarchy stances are un-Islamic, in fact. So there's the Republic group who calls for anti-monarchy, but their viewpoint is that what Rash said. They're saying we're a democracy. How are these people unelected heads of state? That's their point. So their promotion is of democracy, of secularism, because the Queen and royal family actually has a religious significance as well. So they're they're Republicans basically. They're just they want a president maybe, and nothing more than a royal family. So I think the important thing is that when we make our argument against not really anti-monarchy, I won't really call it that, but anti-system, anti-establishment, and pro-Islam is where we should be. We just need to make sure that is our call is clear. It's nothing really about the UK or Western lands anyway. It's about the Muslim lands. But if we're going to take a stance, we should take a stance and articulate ourselves well when it comes to this, because there are some Muslims that are falling in this trap. We need to make it clear. And the fact that social media does have an impact, I know for sure when I've shared stuff on social media, there's been people that may have held a stance of kind of respecting the Queen and all of that and doing all of this, but they may have now seen the fact that actually there's an overwhelming majority, quite maybe not a majority, but quite a few people that are calling it out. It silenced them. They're thinking, actually, you know what? I'm not going to just toe the line. So I think it's really important that we are clear on our stance here, and not just fall into the trap of just kind of moving along with groups. And like it often happens with liberalism, we just fall in line with the left because we disagree with the right, or the right because we need to make sure we don't do that. The second point I just wanted to make clear is I did a khutbah on. I didn't do a khutbah on this, but it was coincidence really. But I was going to do a khutbah on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as you guys know, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُ يُدْرِكُمُ الْمَوْتُ وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ. Wherever you may be, death will overcome you, even if you are in fortified towers. The Queen died in Balmoral Castle. Some even were like, when is she going to die? She seemed to be invincible, not dying, right? And the reality is that all of us will die. We will all die. Death will overcome us, whether we are young, whether we are old, whether we're in a fortified tower, whether we're rich or we're poor, whether we're a queen or a king. We will all return to the King of all kings. So we need to prepare for that, right? And it shows that, where did the Queen go? Yes, we might have all this facade when it comes to like taking the body, and the funeral, obviously on taxpayers' money, will be an eventful, massive event, right? But in the end, she goes to the same place that we will all go and be questioned. So this should be, again, a reality check for everyone, that it doesn't matter what your status is here, as long as your status is with Allah in terms of your good deeds in this world. That's what really matters. So yeah, that was it really from me.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, bro. Really sound advice, man. Something to contemplate and reflect on. Rash, any final points?
Yeah, just one really. That, look, our deen requires us to attain knowledge, and the issue we have today is, so those people who maybe remain quiet or toe the line or conform, or who even might feel uncomfortable to say, look, I'm not gonna, if everybody around me is upset by this, they're kind of fearful of saying that they're not upset by this, because they go, look, she doesn't represent me. But what the reason why they'll either stay quiet or will toe the line, again, sometimes not intentionally, is because they feel the pressure of not being able to say themselves what the Islamic stance should be. And the only way you can do that is through knowledge. You need to know about what the royal family represents. Just because she's one woman, she represents more than that. A lot has happened under her reign that has affected Muslims. You represent Islam at the end of the day. That's what we are. As Muslims, we represent Islam. If we can't defend Islam from our side, then what are we doing? We're just allowing it to be attacked. So yes, it's difficult, but knowledge has to be the number one thing that we think about. We have to learn about what colonialism has, how that's affected Muslims. We have to learn about what recent wars have happened in our countries. We have to learn about why we're even here. We have to learn about the systems that should be in place from an Islamic point of view. If you know about those things, then it's a lot easier to go, well, this is why I'm not going to be with you praying for the Queen or in mourning with you. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be in mourning with you because X, Y, Z. Because if there are non-Muslims that can do that and turn around and go, I'm not in mourning because X, Y, and Z, she doesn't represent me, and these are non-Muslims, then as Muslims, we have 10 times more reason to do that. So this whole integration piece, what happens is lack of knowledge causes you to integrate and causes you to move away from Islam, and that's dangerous. So my point would just be that, gain that knowledge and be able to put forward the Islamic stance. And trust me, people will appreciate you for it. At first, you might think they'll go, oh gosh, this guy is anti-establishment, blah, blah, blah. I'm honestly saying that if you speak to people one-to-one, they will 100% appreciate you, because they will go, oh, here's someone who thinks. Here's someone who doesn't just listen to the media and toe whatever the media says. Trust me, people will appreciate you for it.
Jazakallah khair, bro. Jazakallah khair for all your thoughts.